Hi, my name is Crystal Cott, and this is a push for the legalization of medical marijuana. What is marijuana? Hemp, grass, weed, hash? Encyclopedia Britannica defines it as a crude drug made from the leaves and flowers of the plant genus cannabis. Tetrahydrocannabinol is the active chemical in marijuana, and it ranks just behind caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol as the most used controlled substance in the United States. The biggest difference is the first three are legal, and I see no reason why that marijuana is not. Let's start with some history. The story seems to begin back in 2700 BC, when Emperor Shan Yu is thought to have found great healing powers in the marijuana plant. He brought these findings to the forefront of Chinese medicine. He felt that marijuana could be used for well over 100 ailments, everything from gout to malaria. Fast forward to 1554 or 1545, when the Spanish brought the plant to the New World. In 1611, the English introduced it to the colony of Jamestown. It was grown mainly as a source of fiber, and it quickly became a cash crop, one to rival tobacco. It became so prevalent in Virginia that in 1772 rewards were given to those who grew hemp, and those who did not were punished. After being so popular in medicine in ancient times, it was Dr. William O'Shaughnessy in 1830 who made the medical uses of marijuana and the cannabis plant better known to the Western world. Subsequently, his research led to many discoveries of the great medicinal powers of cannabis. In 1850, marijuana was added to the U.S. Pharmacopoeia. It was found to be an aid in many illnesses. By the 1930s, commercial extracts of marijuana could be found easily and purchased. They were made for everything from menstrual cramps, toothaches, coughs, itching, etc. But in 1937, a propaganda fueled by outlandish stories published in the papers owned by William Randolph Hearst moved the Congress to pass the Marijuana Tax Act. This act would make it almost impossible to buy, sell, and even grow cannabis. Hemp was poised to take over the fiber and paper industries, which would hobble the very lucrative timber industry, which William Hearst had a huge stake in. Many thought that this was the only reason that he spoke out against marijuana. The move was strongly opposed by the American Medical Association, who thought that marijuana had much more potential and wanted to further investigate it. As a consequence of the Tax Act, marijuana was removed from the pharmacopoeia in 1942, and therefore was seen to no longer have any medical value. In a final cutting blow to marijuana, in 1970, it was classified as a Schedule I drug, right alongside LSD and cocaine, by the Controlled Substance Act. That same year, to try to counteract the Controlled Substance Act, a group called NORML was formed. NORML stands for National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. They fought to make marijuana legal for those who needed it medically. In 1972, the Schaefer Commission was a study founded by President Nixon after his declaration of his war on drugs. He swore that there was no reason, social, medical, or otherwise, that marijuana should be legal. He started the commission to research if marijuana was dangerous or helpful. When the commission finally came back with their recommendation that marijuana should be decriminalized, Nixon refused. Marijuana was far too important a component in his war against drugs. Many battles between proponents and opponents of medical marijuana are still happening today. In 1996, California became the first state to legalize medical marijuana. This was after a bill was put through the Senate, partially written by a group of people who opened the very first dispensary in North America, lovingly known as the Mothership. The Mothership was first founded to help those who were going through HIV/AIDS. And it helped them with their pain and suffering. Two years later, Alaska, Washington, and Oregon followed suit. There are now over 22 states, and even our nation's capital, D.C., that have legalized medical marijuana. Now that you have been given a brief history lesson, I think it's time you understand why it's so important. Why is it so important that medical marijuana be legalized? Jocelyn Elders, MD, states, "The evidence is overwhelming that marijuana can relieve certain types of pain, nausea, vomiting, and other symptoms caused by such illnesses as multiple sclerosis, cancer, and AIDS, or by the harsh drugs sometimes used to treat them, and it can do so with remarkable safety. Indeed, marijuana is less toxic than many of the drugs that physicians use to treat and prescribe every day." Just think about the commercials that you see for some of these illnesses and the symptoms. Just look at the side effects these different medicines have. Marijuana doesn't have half of those side effects. The most you'll probably get is maybe fatter. Marijuana has shown to be effective in treating the symptoms of HIV/AIDS, and recently scientists have found it stops the spread of AIDS through the body in monkeys. In a 2006 study, scientists found that marijuana can block an enzyme that is behind the progression of Alzheimer's. It also prevents protein clumps that can inhibit cognition and memory. A 2012 study found that a marijuana compound can stop metastasis in some kinds of aggressive cancers. Last year, a similar study found that certain non-psychoactive cannabinoids result in dramatic reductions in cell viability and cause a simultaneous arrest at all phases of the cell cycle in leukemia cells. Marijuana's anti-inflammatory pain relief has shown to be effective in treating a host of illnesses and conditions such as multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and migraines. The effects are several hundred times more powerful than that of an aspirin. There are many diseases that marijuana has shown to at least affect in the symptoms, such as Tourette's, depression, epilepsy, anxiety, and countless of other elements are aided by medical marijuana. Opponents would say classifying marijuana as a medicine would cause an issue of abuse. But when you see dependency on prescription drugs is at an all-time high in the United States, minors and adults alike die every day from overdosing on drugs that are FDA approved but are in no way safer than marijuana. It is physically impossible to overdose on cannabis. Truthfully, no death has ever been recorded by the way of cannabis overdose. You probably won't feel well if you have a lot, but you won't die from the actual smoking too much or imbibing too much. That in comparison, in 2009 alone, the United States, there were 1,500 deaths from painkillers and opioids. Tylenol, also known as acetaminophen, a simple painkiller that you can give your children, killed 908 people in 2013. Marijuana works because there are already receptors in place in your brain to receive the cannabinoids. The cannabinoids attach themselves to them. It grows naturally and can be cultivated easily. If done right, with the right amount of regulation, medical marijuana could be truly successful. I'm sure that if you look in your life, you can find one person that this medicine would help. And me personally, it's my mother. My mother has been in pain for the past 6 years of her life, and she is on a pharmacy of medicine that could easily reduce by just switching over to medical marijuana. She has to take an appetite stimulator. She has to take an anti-anxiety medicine. She has to take depression. She has to take blood pressure medicine. That is just the tip of the iceberg of what has become her life. And if we could just replace 5 of those things with something as simple as a brownie that she could eat every day, and it would make her life better. It would mean the world to me to be able to give that to her. So I hope you consider that. Look into your own life. Look to the people around you that this could really, really help. I hope that you take the time to do the research yourself and see that it might not be an ultimate medical solution, but it's better than solutions that we've chosen so far. Thank you again for listening to me, and have a great day.